but if you'd like to try your hand at it,
Sure.
your aircraft.
All right, I got it.
And like I say, just play around with it and see what you want to see. And
Boy, it is light.
Yeah,
Holy
it's
cow.
extremely light on the controls. Very responsive, but very docile. Like I say, it won't bite.
Altimeter.
The way you start this thing, of course, being a 1946 airplane, there's really no formal checklist. And so I just learned how to do this with a flow pattern, and away we go. I've got almost 500 hours in it, and so I'm pretty accustomed to what we need to do. But the way I do it, the fuel valves are down here. You cannot see them. And there's two of them. The one on the bottom turns all the fuel system off, and the one on the top selects the left or the right tank. There's no both position. Okay. Ironically, the handles are identical, and they're stacked vertically, so you have to be very cautious about that.
Right.
And some of these airplanes have been lost due to fuel mismanagement, so you get into the habit of frequently reaching down here and verifying the position of the fuel handles. But once you get used to it, it's really no big deal. But the way we start it, we should be sure all our breakers are in, our mags are off, our mixture's rich, our throttle's cracked. I go ahead and turn the mags on, and I raise a little head pressure in the carburetor with this wobble pump. And then once we get a little of that, we'll turn on the battery. We'll give it a little shot of boost, a little shot of prime, and then away we go. Clear!
While we're waiting for the oil to warm up, I'll go over some of the notably non-ergonomic things on the airplane. Our pitch trim is up here.
Okay.
And it's a little tiny crank. Forward is down, or counterclockwise is down, clockwise is up. And it's got some lag to it. It's fairly responsive, but you want to move it and give it a second or two.
Really?
Yeah, for some reason it takes a little while to respond. There is no rudder trim. The rudder trim is your feet, and the rudder is plenty effective in flight. Leaves a little to be desired on the ground. We talked about where the fuel valves were. We talked about where the wobble pump was. This airplane has been updated with an electric fuel pump, and we use it for takeoff and landing, and when we switch fuel tanks in flight. Okay. You'll see that the gyros are a little lazy. They're supposed to be. The airplane does not have a vacuum pump. The gyros are powered by a Venturi, so they're not going to start to wake up until we start rolling on takeoff, and that's fine. Perfectly normal. The other thing that's a characteristic of that Venturi, because of where it is in relation to the prop blast, while we're taxiing, you may periodically hear something that almost sounds like a squeak.
Really?
And it's that Venturi. Yeah, it's a whistle coming through the Venturi. So that's kind of interesting. Our gear handle is here. It's 34 spins of the crank, up or down. And our flap handle is here.
Well,
and you've got up, one notch, second notch, and that's it. And so it is a little bit of a reach, and
that's interesting.
But you've got the reliability and the response of a manual flap system, which is nice. So it's one of those things that kind of is what it is. We'll talk more about the aeromatic propeller when we're on the ground and we do our walk-around briefing, but it's a very interesting propeller. In the years before, in the pre and war years, radial engine and big engine airplanes had constant speed propellers. That was something that came around in the 30s, and it was a major benefit in terms of performance. And all the light airplane manufacturers, the engine builders, were like, "Hey, give us some of that." And unfortunately, their engines did not have hollow crankshafts, nor did they generate enough volume of oil to run a constant speed prop. And a lot of people came up with their own solution. Aeromatic came up with theirs. It's a wooden blade propeller, and it's got some counterweights and a spring inside of it, and it just reacts to centrifugal force and air loads and speed. And so it has a relatively narrow pitch change range of operation, but it's quite quite effective, and you'll see it on take. You may feel it as we accelerate. You may feel the RPM drop just a little bit as we accelerate after takeoff, and that's perfectly normal.
And it does that all on its own?
All on its own. You'll see there's no cockpit control for it whatsoever.
That's really cool.
So it was really way ahead of its time in a lot of respects. And, some of them later on they were somewhat rejected because they weren't supported very well. Now they're supported again, at least to some extent. And so I've elected to keep it on this airplane. I've flown this airplane with a Macaulay metal propeller, which it is also approved for. And I wasn't impressed.
Really?
So, yeah.
You like that one better, huh?
Yeah, this is a far better prop.
Wow.
What it has a tendency to do, it's optimized to run somewhere between 2,500 and 2,550 RPM. So in cruise, we've got a manifold pressure gauge, and we'll pull the power back significantly in cruise, but the prop will keep churning along at about 2,500 RPM, which is interesting. And then, at some point as we reduce the power more, it acts like any other prop and it begins to slow down. But anyway, our oil's warm enough to taxi. If you're ready, I'm ready.
I'm good.
Here we go. So we'll just get this thing spun around. Hello, Spinks Ground, Bellanca 86916, Eastside self-serve fuel pump, taxi with India.
Bellanca 86916, Spinks Ground, runway 17 right, taxi via Charlie, cross, runway 17 left.
17 right via Charlie, cleared to cross runway 17 left, Bellanca 9016. So we have a steerable tail wheel.
Oh, okay.
And very effective brakes. So the airplane's pretty docile to taxi. Of course, like any other tail dragger, it wants to weather vane into the wind in a big way.
Especially with those extra vertical services.
Yeah. So we'll go up to 1900 RPM is where it likes to do its run up. And we got good oil pressure, good fuel pressure, amps are charging. Breakers are in.
That's a long ailerons.
Flight controls are free and correct. Trimmer sets. Fuel valves are set. Fuel gauge matches what the fuel valve is. And transponder is on. And we'll put 1 notch of flaps for takeoff. And if you're ready, Eric, what I'll do is I'll help you secure the door.
All right.
The way this thing works, it's just kind of the way it's put together. The top latch likes to go first, and then we do the bottom latch.
Okay.
But you're fully latched. Tower is tuned up. Spinks Tower, Bellanca 86916, ready for departure, runway 17 right, southwest departure.
Bellanca 86916, Spinks Tower, good morning. Runway 17 right, clear for takeoff, right turn out approved.
Clear for takeoff, 17 right turn out approved. All right, so final's clear, and it's clear as far as we can see around. The man cleared us for takeoff, the runway's clear. We got good temperatures and pressures, fuel valves are set appropriately, transponder's on and transponding. And away we go. Yeah, we just take it up to full power nice and gently on the first flight of the day. And we make sure we've got adequate RPM and manifold pressure. And we'll raise the tail a little, but the airplane wants to fly off in a tail low attitude.
Really?
And it flies off at about 55 miles an hour.
Spinks Tower is
And we let it accelerate to about 70 to 75.
Landing with India.
Retract the flaps, nice and slow.
Spinks Airport right.
And a gear up. So here we go for the fun.
Report right base for 17 right, 6 up Mike.
And now the gear's up.
Wow, that's a workout.
A little bit. A little bit.
The Grumman duck is the same thing. It's on the it's on the right side if I remember correctly, and it's like 50 something cranks I think maybe.
All right. So we've got Nothing ahead but I-35 to land on, so we'll start our right turn. And I pulled the power a little bit off of full power for climb. And I do a cruise climb at between 90 and 100 miles an hour.
This is really cool. I've always wanted to fly one of these.
Well, there you go. Now you've got your wish. They fly like they look.
Really?
You can see it's a fingertip airplane.
Yeah.
And once we get a little altitude, when we get leveled out, I'll show you some of that.
Okay.
But it's overall, it's a very forgiving airplane. It doesn't tolerate being uncoordinated in low-speed flight. It'll drop off into at least an incipient spin if you provoke it.
Oh, wow.
And with these, we'll talk more about the tail when we're on the ground, but it's got what I refer to as the big outriggers, and it's placarded against intentional spinning, so we try to avoid spinning it.
Gotcha.
And in just a normal stall scenario, it's very hesitant to spin. But if you screw it up in terms of coordination, it'll drop a wing kind of aggressively and get your attention.
I just saw that placard. Front seat must be occupied when you get 3 people. Is that for CG?
You can't put 2 people in the back. Yeah. For and that's entirely for CG. Really, for load lifting capabilities, for all practical purposes, it's a 2-place airplane.
Gotcha.
But we'll take it up to 4,500 feet, and it kind of likes, it does a little better if we give it a little bit of altitude and find some smooth air with it. In turbulence, it's got a fairly light wing loading, and the ailerons are extremely responsive, so it's very easy to get the airplane doing this bouncy, wiggly thing. And so when I fly, I'm always on this hunt for smooth air.
I got you.
So we'll find some here at 4,500 feet, hopefully, and then we'll just kind of play around with the airplane a little bit, give you the opportunity to fly it.
Okay. How long have you had it?
5 years.
5 years.
Right, clear to land.
Clear to land, 6 off max.
Okay, 6916, frequency change approved.
Bellanca 916, see you later.
Hey, we can get a better climb rate out of it, no problem, but it's at the cost of raising the nose quite a bit, and we have no obstacles to clear. I'm not in any big, massive hurry. And so, like I say, this is kind of how I like to climb it. If we honk the nose up, it'll climb almost 1,000 feet a minute. But the engine has been updated with a modern oil cooler, which it needed. And but it's still, even with a modern oil cooler, and all the Franklin experts say, no, that's what it's supposed to do. You want it to do this. In the climb, hot weather, cold weather, doesn't matter. At some point, it goes pretty close to the top of the green arc on oil temperature. And then when it's settled down in cruise, it settles down to about 82 to 85 degrees centigrade and just stays there. Okay. What I've read is that that's an almost ideal temperature for burning off contaminants. So I'm good with it.
Yeah.
And the thing uses very little oil. It uses about 1 quart every 8 to 9 hours.
Wow.
And and the oil pressure is incredibly steady with it. So I'm like, yeah, if this is what all the experts say we should be doing, then this is what we'll do.
What's your fuel burn?
I flight plan for 9.5 gallons an hour if I'm just playing and I'm down low. If I'm taking it someplace and taking it up high, if I can get above 5,000 feet and stay there for a long range cruise, it's closer to 9. I still flight plan for 9.25.
Okay.
But it's not bad for 165 horsepower. And it's 118 knots true all day long, all day, every day, morning, noon, and night. That's just kind of where it's happy. And so that's what I flight plan for, and I've always been very, very pleased with what it does. It has enough wing on it. If I want to be a little more aggressive in how I climb with it, I've had this airplane up at 11,500 feet to catch a tailwind going east. And so it'll go all the way up there. It's not going to get there very fast, but it will get there. Wow. And it'll stay there, and it flies just fine up there. The engine's developing enough manifold pressure. It's worth going up there. The prop, The prop seems to kind of become unhappy above about 7,500 feet, but that's not bad. 9,500 feet for me, eastbound VFR is a normal routine altitude.
Really?
And,
wow.
you know, if I'm going to be on a leg that's longer than 2 hours, we'll go right up there, as, you know, if the wind is favorable. So here's our 4,500 feet. And it takes the airplane about 2 or 3 minutes to accelerate, do what it's going to do. So what we'll do is we'll level it out. We'll let the RPM kind of increase a little bit. And then a nice, not going anywhere, cruise power setting for this airplane at 4,500 feet is somewhere between 22.5 and 23 inches of manifold pressure.
Okay.
But we don't do that until it's settled down. And like I say, it takes it a few minutes to settle down. And we've got traffic there at 12:30. Got a 172 going roughly the same direction we are. I don't know if you can see him. He's pretty much on the horizon. I think he's at 4,500 feet with us.
Yeah, I got him. Yeah, we don't have much of a horizon out there today, do we?
Yeah, unfortunately a little hazy today. It's a shame.
Looks like he's going maybe a little bit this way.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and select the left fuel tank. And I promise it's not empty. We're doing a little troubleshooting on the left fuel sending unit, but we checked it in pre-flight. It's got 11 gallons in it. That's about an hour and 20 minutes. There's Cleburne. That's going to be our landing airport.
Oh, okay.
Right over there. But like I say, for now we're just going to play around a little bit. So we're going to turn to the right a little bit so that we can cross behind this guy. And I'm going to make sure that I give you an airplane that's relatively in trim. But before I give it to you, I just want to demonstrate a couple of things.
Yeah.
You know, in our new pilot ground school, we read about the different types of stability or instability, and they talk about neutral static stability. And that's where, when you displace the controls, the airplane just kind of keeps going. It doesn't try to depart controlled flight, but it doesn't want to return to wings level flight. And this airplane, although it has some dihedral, it doesn't have enough to display the positive static stability that most modern light airplanes have. And so what I want to demonstrate to you is we're just going to take the ailerons and we're not even going to deflect them that far, but we'll deflect them fairly rapidly. And I just want you to kind of watch the horizon and watch what the airplane does when I let go. So here we go. We're going to go to the right first. We're just going to go 1, 2, 3. We're going to pop it, and it'll just keep right on going.
Wow. No kidding.
All right. and even if you do it just a little, it'll still keep right on going. It goes where you tell it to right now, and it will not stop doing it until you tell it to stop.
It's almost like it wants to be an aerobatic airplane.
And guys do aerobatics with them, but this is a 33-year-old restoration, so I'm not inclined to do that.
Right.
The other thing is because it's placarded against spinning. If you're not a seasoned aerobatic pilot, a lot of times if you mess up, you're going to end up in a spin of some kind. And but we do have a lot of fun with it when I'm alone. But it's not quite as aggressive in that respect in pitch, but it still does it in pitch. We'll just pull just very gently on 1, 2, 3. And if you pull and let go, it stops. It doesn't keep pitching up, but it does not pitch back down until you tell it to. But when you tell it to, it does it immediately. The rudder, you can see, is not overly effective. It's certainly more than enough in normal flight. In a crosswind, it's really inadequate, and so you've got to be on your game in a crosswind landing and conscientiously limit what you're doing in terms of your crosswind component. But if you'd like to try your hand at it, your aircraft.
All right, I got it.
And like I say, just play around with it and see what you want to see. And
boy, it is light.
Yeah, it's extremely light on the controls. Very responsive, but very docile. Like I say, it won't bite.
Altimeter,
and
3.002 inches of mercury. Remarks
it's
to the altitude.
Very nice flying airplane.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
I mean, you just fly it. You just barely fly it with your fingertips, and whatever you tell it to do, it's going to do it. And
Cleburne Regional Airport. Automated weather observation 1605 Zulu. Wind 170 at 10 knots. Peak gusts 16 knots. Visibility more than 10.
Sky condition, clear, below 12,000.
And you can see that even if it accelerates or decelerates a little, the prop is still trying to regulate itself to about 2550. And like I say, that's where it's happy.
Of mercury,
and
density altitude 2300. Claiborne Regional Airport. Automated weather observation 1606 Zulu. Wind 180 at 10.
Isn't that nice?
Golly, that's so enjoyable. It really is. I mean, it takes no effort.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah, you just, I mean, it's certainly no pits, but in some ways it is mildly similar in that it does what you tell it to do right then and there.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's a neat airplane on that front.
Altitude 2300.
She likes to climb.
It doesn't climb fast, but it will climb forever. Like I say, I've had it at 11.5. I wouldn't do that with you and I in here on a hot day, because we just simply never get there. But unless we found a thermal. But like I say, it'll do it, and the wing is very happy up there. The engine is happy enough.
Sky condition clear below 12,000. Temperature 25 Celsius. Dew point 17 Celsius. Altimeter 300. 2 inches of mercury. Remarks. Density altitude 2300.
Thank you so much for letting me fly this. This is fun.
Yeah, it's a hoot. If, evenings right before sunset or very early mornings right after the sun has rose, it's a beautiful airplane just to take down low. I love flying down in the Brazos River Valley, and
that would be cool.
You know, just go out there and enjoy ourselves.
Visibility more than 10. Sky condition clear below 12,000. Temperature 25 Celsius.
Here, we'll get that out of your audio. I'm sorry.
That's right. Wow.
Nice, huh?
Yeah. Very, very nice. It's just wow.
Yeah.
I'm probably uncoordinated as all get out, but
it's like a little go-kart. You know, it's certainly no Corvette, it's certainly no muscle car, but in a lot of respects, it's like a little go-kart. And you can see, you know, once you get the thing in the air and it's flying, we've got a little suction gauge that's keyed to the venturi. It generates plenty of vacuum pressure. The gyros work fine. They don't precess at all unless we maneuver very aggressively. And so it's, for what I use it for, it's more than adequate.
Yeah. I can see with that instability, though, like you were saying, on a bumpy day, I can see how that.
It'll give you a workout.
Yeah.
It'll just annoy the daylights out of you. On a cross country, like when I'm going to an air show or a fly-in, and I've got a 3-hour leg in this thing, and it's bumpy. I'm like, oh man, you're gonna make me work for it today, aren't you? And it's like, yep, I sure am. I absolutely am gonna make you work today, Brad. And away we go. And you can see once the nose starts coming down, even with the power back a little bit, man, she just likes to take off for the moon. It'll accelerate real nicely.
Boy, no kidding. That red wing is so pretty. And
that's my favorite. On there. Yeah, that's my favorite view.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got the airport. And Cleveland's kind of weird. They use a right-hand pattern to runway 15, but we'll go in there, and the traffic pattern altitude's about 1,800 feet.
Where is the airport?
That's right. You're looking at it.
Yeah.
Downwind for 17 degrees.
So there's no limiting speeds for landing gear operation.
Really?
I try to operate it as at low of a speed as is practicable. I don't use it as a speed brake, even though the airplane's pretty slick. One of the hardest things to do with the airplane, the pattern, is to get it to slow down and come down.
Really?
And so it's a real challenge. The airplane likes to cross the fence at about 70. If you need to three-point it, if you're going to land in a short runway or rough runway, it needs to cross the fence even slower than that. It needs to cross it at more like 60. And at that speed, to get it to fly that speed, you end up with the nose up a little bit, and it takes a little bit of power to control the sink rate and keep the sink rate reasonable.
Okay.
You know, if I was, when I first started flying the airplane, my tendency was just to come down on final at about 90. And that gave a nice pitch picture and a nice descent rate, but it's just simply too fast. And so, you know, it's like, nah, you know, you don't want to be touching this thing down too fast, or it takes a while to get it slowed down. And while you're trying to get it slowed down, it's going to give you a run for your money if there's any kind of crosswind.
Gotcha.
Travis Tower 270 off Mike, west down 1170. Cleveland traffic, Bellanca 86916 is 3 miles due west, letter right downwind for runway 15, full stop, Cleveland. Greater traffic, 95129er, left base 17, greater traffic. Hi, Brad.
I don't know who's saying hi, Brad.
Final 17.
And that's how it rides turbulence.
Really?
It rides turbulence a little harsh.
Yeah.
You'd think with that wood wing that it wouldn't do that, but it does. So here, we're going to switch back to the right fuel tank for takeoff and landing. We got fuel pump on, fuel pressure up. Be sure we have the correct valve. Switch the tanks, all by feel, all by feel. Monitor the fuel pressure for a little bit. Kill the boost pump again. So now we're back in the zone of turbulence and a little bit of heat. I'm going to lower this window a little bit.
Right ahead, yeah.
It's a lot louder on my side than it is on yours. So, but like I say, I've got a mic muff. Hopefully, it'll behave itself for us.
I can hear you just fine. That means the camera hears you
Good
just
deal.
fine, yeah.
Cleveland traffic, Bellanca 86916 is over the north end of the pond. We're going to be entering right downwind runway 15, Cleveland, full stop.
So I'll put that between us if you don't mind.
Sure.
All right, I got one at the departure end of the runway. Looks like he's getting ready to take the runway. And then on downwind, we get the boost pump on, we get the power back,
152.
we get the trim set, we get the airplane decelerating, and then it's time for our shoulder workout, the second shoulder workout of the flight.
Cleveland traffic, Takeoff 287 taking off runway 15, Cleveland.
Gear down.
Cleveland traffic, Bellanca 86916, midfield downwind runway 15, full stop, Cleveland.
All right, so he's departing.
Yep. I don't see anybody else so far.
I don't
Cleveland traffic, 78970, RNAV 33, about 8 to the south. We'll break off over the fields, Cleveland.
And he's off.
Cool. Well, I wish I had a little bit smoother air for you today.
Oh, I don't mind. It doesn't bother me at all.
Traffic,
Cool.
Cessna 516 Tango Charlie is 10 DME north.
Cleveland traffic, Bellanca 86916, right base runway 15, full stop, Cleveland. Cleveland traffic, Bellanca 86916, final runway 15, Cleveland.
Ooh, crazy high.
Decatur traffic, 152 Decatur traffic, 95129er, left downwind 17, Decatur traffic.
Yeah, a little high, but we'll get it. We're a little high, but the important thing is that we're a little fast.
Yeah. That looks good though.
So you can see the windsock there. We got a pretty good right crosswind. This airplane does not like to be side slipped. So we just come down the pipe in a little bit of crab, carry just a little extra power, don't have to carry a whole lot. And then right at the bottom, we align the nose with the runway, drop the upwind wing, and that's all there is to it. except for the little dance that we have to do as we roll out. And we touch down faster than I would normally touch down in this airplane, but we'll do better when we land at Spinks. And because there's no way of getting gear and flaps mixed up, we can retract the flaps on a landing roll to keep the tail wheel pasted.
But that tail wheel really came down gentle.
Yeah, the whole airplane comes down gently.
Wow.
Isn't it nice?
Yeah,
it's got a really soft gear on it.
Man.
But it's still a tail dragger. There's not a moment's rest. I think that's the strobe lights interfering with our audio just a little. Well, I'm sorry I didn't make that taxiway, but I don't usually use the brakes unless I absolutely have to on a landing roll.
No reason to, yeah.
No reason to use them at all. The city of Cleveland extended this runway for us just so that we could do stuff like this.
That was a very nice landing, too.
Well, it was a disappointing pattern, but like I say.
Cleveland, 287, right, 5, set to go, Cleveland. Cleveland traffic, sustain 9780, 2 mile final, runway 33, we'll be breaking it off to the east here momentarily, Cleveland.
Cleveland traffic, Bellanca 6916, clear of runway 15. We'll be back taxiing to the city ramp.
All right. And so if you can keep control of the door, pretty please, sure on top, unlatch the top latch first, and then the bottom latch.
3,500, about 6 miles northwest, Cleveland. Northeast, Cleveland.
That's much better.
It does feel good.
Cleveland traffic, sustain 9780, departing to the east, Cleveland.
But as you can see, the airplane, when the wind's down the runway or close to down the runway, the airplane has got relatively docile ground handling characteristics. And it's interesting, it's deceiving because it doesn't take much in terms of getting out of, down the runway. And you go, oh, that's not that much more than what we've operated in yesterday or the day before. And suddenly the thing's a handful. And so it, it'll catch you by surprise periodically. And what we'll do is we'll put it between these two low-wing airplanes, this Musketeer and this Grumman, pointed at the building. All right. And I think it'll be fun.
Traffic's gone on 287 right down.
Thanks for watching. Please consider becoming a Patreon and get exclusive content like the return leg back home to Spinks, only available to my supporters on Patreon.